Hey guys, Collin Chi, certified nutritional consultant, numerologist, bringing you another talk today. Today, I want to talk to you guys about love and about the different ideas of love, the different concepts of love. What is love? What is it, folks? It's such a complicated subject. There's so many different kinds of love. I encourage you to have your own definition of love, yet I also encourage you to obliterate your own definitions of love. Love is a mysterious thing, and but in this video I'm going to attempt to try to nail it down, because I've had a lot of thoughts about it over the years. So I'm going to be going through some of my favorite quotes on love. I'm going to be telling you some of my own quotes that I've come up with about love, so you will have never heard these quotes before, which I think some of my quotes are pretty insightful. And I'm also going to be going through Solovyov, Emerson, Rilke, Ayn Rand, Krishnamurti, M. Scott Peck, and I know I'm missing somebody, but I'm going to go through all of it. There's a lot to say here. So, what is love? What is it? What the heck is it? I'm going to just jump right into my definition of it and what I've seen in my life and what I've come to call it as far as romantic relationship type love. I'm mainly going to be talking about that kind of love. On a whole nother level and other levels spiritually, it's all about unconditional love and compassion and universal love, which is a completely different kind of love than what I'm going to be talking about. However, I do think that being that type of person that is so awesome that you love everybody and that you truly just have brotherly love and unconditional love and goodwill toward men, toward all, I think if you are that type of person, you can really make yourself very worthy of a romantic and relationship type love. There's a lot of people out there that think love should just come to them and just think they're awesome, but they don't really even have a self, and they don't really have a lot of value to even offer, yet they're expecting this fairy tale amazing kind of love, and they're completely deluding themselves and overly self-confident that they expect such amazing love, but they don't realize that they themselves have to make themselves very, very worthy of a higher love if they're expecting such a high love. So my definition, here it is: having the same values and different virtues. Okay, same values means that you're going in the same direction. You have the same fundamental values, same fundamental goals, same fundamental ideals, in a way. Which is to say, maybe you both value self-actualization. Maybe you both value knowledge. You both value learning. You both value self-improvement. You both value, success. You both value, any number of things. And so if you both value the same thing, it makes it very easy. Not that love is easy, but it makes it easier, the fact that you're going in the same direction. You're not going to have to fight against each other in all these struggles and battles with each other, because you're both going to be almost like the same person, because fundamentally you're going after the same thing. You both want to be a successful person, or you both really just want to learn and teach and grow, or you both fundamentally are interested in the same things. You both want to, you both value creativity. You both want to be creators in your life. You both value all these things and if you value a lot of the same things, it makes it very easy. But then you have different virtues or different vices, okay? You need this because this helps you to stay balanced, because if you have the same virtues or if you have the same vices, let's say, you both are night owls, you both stay up late, and you both wake up late. That's just your natural instincts and your natural ways of being. You both just happen to have those vices, or you both smoke cigarettes, or you both overeat, or whatever, these vices. If you both have those same natural instincts, you're going to influence each other most of the time in a negative, bad way, because you both are that way. If you had, one person that is, say, they are disciplined in one way where they go to bed early, they wake up early, and this person over here, goes to bed late and wakes up late. This person's going to influence this person to kind of wake up a little earlier, go to bed a little earlier, so he's going to come up to his level because this person over here admires the fact that this person is disciplined in that way. And the reason we admire that characteristic is because we don't ourselves possess it, right? We admire what we don't have and what we want to become to improve ourselves. That's what love is. What we admire is what we love. What we are inspired by is what we truly love. What the virtues that we see that we don't have, but yet we want for ourselves, that's what we love because it's useful to us. It's going to benefit us. It's going to help us. We're going to improve, right? So, again, let's say you both, you both smoke, but you both want to quit, or you both overeat and you both want to stop doing that. You both overweight or whatever. You're going to drag each other down because, of course, you could, if you both are very self-aware and both dedicated to improving these negative, or if you want to call them negative, these vices that you have that you see as vices. If you both want to improve them, you're both very conscious of it, and you're both very dedicated towards doing that, then you could actually become a team and work on a certain thing that you both want to improve together, and you might actually, skyrocket to the top of where you want to be. However, that's more rare because a lot of us don't want to work. A lot of us are just running on our natural instincts. We don't want to work on ourselves. So naturally, we don't see relationships as work. We don't see life as needing to work on ourselves oftentimes. We just think we're worthy of this fairy tale love and we're perfect and we should just be loved for us. But what is you? Where is yourself? So again, let me get back to this before I go off on another thing. Same values, so you're going in the same direction, but different virtues, or same values and different vices, because then there's going to be balance. Okay, you need balance. A lot of people say opposites attract. Yes, opposites, people that are opposite in vices and virtues, not people that are opposite in fundamental values. You both value learning, you both value creativity, you both value, whatever. Okay, you both value health, you both value taking care of your body. These are going to solidify an awesome relationship for you guys because you're both valuing, not only do you value the same things, but you both value positive things, right? So you have to be positive. I like Solovyov's quotes that basically say that you have to love life in order to be capable of loving another person. I think that's an awesome idea. And I also would add to it that I think you both have to be very healthy psychologically and physically, mentally, emotionally, all around. Both people have to be very healthy in order to actually be capable of love. Or just, if we're just talking about you, if you're very unhealthy, you're an addict, you're a possessive, addicted, psychological mess, you're still a child, you haven't grown up, you're just, if you have all these issues and you're not healthy or you're not physically healthy, then you're gonna be a drain on other people. You're not gonna be capable of love because you're also not gonna be very worthy of love because people don't want to be really around somebody who's not gonna benefit them. Of course, there's the savior complex where we want to save other people, we want to help other people. That's, that this is the drama triangle that is called, that we want to beware of. The savior complex, the persecutor, and the victim. Each of us falls into one of these roles at some point in our lives in relationships. We meet somebody that we feel sorry for. Somebody's puking at a party, and we go and just out of natural human instinct, we go help them and we take care of them. We hold their hair up, whatever. And that person falls in love with you because you were the nice guy that took care of them or whatever. I've heard stories like this. That's how relationships have started. Some guy puking in a bathroom, the chick took care of him, but that can create a lot of issues. But yet, be very open-minded about these things. Don't have too rigid a concept of love. Don't have too rigid an image. Don't build too much of an image about love try to keep it basic to the same values. Like, look for people who value creativity and value learning and value self-improvement and value being a thinker and value self-awareness. Think about those on that fundamental level. Don't think about like, oh, he's got to have this much money in his bank account. Don't think about too detailed of a thing, because you're gonna be presented with somebody who's not quite gonna fit your image of love and your fairy tale ideas, and then you're gonna let him pass you by and you're gonna let this awesome possibility escape from your life because you're not gonna see it, because you're gonna have too rigid a concept. So beware of that also. So again, same values, different vices. Same values, different virtues. I want to elaborate on that just a little bit more before I go to the next topic. There's a lot of topics here that I have to cover, but Ayn Rand would say that the currency in love is virtue. Okay, I agree with this. That the money that we pay each other, almost like she talks about it, almost like a business deal. That one. We want that other person's money, and I want your money, you want, but the money that we are giving each other is not money, it's virtue. That's because, again, that's what we admire in another person. That's what we value. We value the virtues. The virtues are the valuable things. That's the currency. That's the money. Value is money, currency. It's all the same thing, right? In all my interactions, I always seek to be adding value to our conversation, or to my life, to your existence, to your experience, to our experience, to this situation, to this present time right now. So, but you can't add value if you're not a valuable person, right? If you don't have any virtues. So she thinks a lot of people aren't worthy of love because a lot of people aren't virtuous. It makes some sense, right? And I've thought about this a lot, and it's funny because all these people I've read about love, the reason I've ended up reading them is because I drew them to me because I already had these thoughts in my head about love. And so I found the correct material that explained it even better than I could, but I still have so many of my own ideas to add, and because I already thought about it all. But so Ayn Rand, again, she has a quote here. You love people not for what you do for them or what they do for you. You love people for their values, for their virtues, which they have achieved in their own character. Okay? So, some people will think, oh, if I do enough for that other person, he'll love me. No, that's not how it works. If your entire goal in life is to be loved, and you're focused on seeking love and being so nice to that other person that you're trying, that you hope they will love you because you're so unselfish and you're just trying so hard to love them, they're not going to love you because it's impossible to respect you at that point, because you're not respecting yourself, because you're not having a self. You're doing everything for the other person. Then there's no respect possible there. In my experience, it's just very difficult to respect somebody that's doing everything for you and doesn't have their own stuff going on, their own life and their own ideas, their own thoughts, their own experiences that they've cultured, their own stuff to add to the mix here, right? There's a lot of empty people out there. So one of the prerequisites that is necessary for me to love a person is that they be very deep and be a thinker, and also value self-improvement. But to be deep, you have to have had a lot of experiences in life. You have to have gone through hell. So another prerequisite for me to love another person, to fall in love with another person, they have to have been through hell, and have to have been through a lot of pain, because I have in my life, and that changes you. That really destroys all your past self. It destroys all the false, illusory bullcrap, all the programming and the conditioning. One of my quotes is I can't love conditioning. I can't love programming, because that's a robot. That is not a real person. You're loving what you're really loving is just what is another person whose self is basically nothing but what society has programmed into them. that you got to have security and you got to have the job. So many young people these days won't give love a chance because they're so focused on, oh, I don't know if he's doing YouTube videos, maybe he's not going to be successful. I need to worry about my security. And even at a young age, I find these people. And now it's going to be different for different astrological signs. They're going to value different things. So I want to talk about astrology and numerology in regard to this. But again, lots of stuff here about love. I'm going to jump around. I'm going to forget what I'm saying. I'm going to have to come back to it. But Ayn Rand, okay? Ayn Rand. You don't love people for what they do for you, but you love people for their values and for their virtues, right? So, again, each person has to have their own self. So I want to talk about this. This is going to be the next main subject, because without a self, if you're both programmed by society, like your character, all your concepts is given to you by your parents, by society. You need to have gone through pain to destroy all the bullshit and leave at the very basic center. You are in such a depraved state. You've been depressed. You've been isolated to the point to where you've found the truth at the bottom. You've hit rock bottom, and at rock bottom you have to make a choice. Either you start to rise, or you just kill yourself. Which is it? You have to make a choice there. And when you make that choice, you start to form a real self. Because all the stuff you've been telling yourself all these years, I'm a bad person and I suck, and all these self-esteem berating things you've been telling yourself all these years, and all this garbage nonsense programming conditioning that you've heard from people, you're not good enough and you'll never be good enough. Whatever programming and just garbage that's going through your mind for all these years, that's just clogging all your real potential and your real self. Once you've destroyed all that, and pain does that, you now have, pain is the creator. Pain is the passion creator. Okay? Pain creates a passion. You have now a passion to get away from the pain. You become very, very passionate because you have to get away from that pain, otherwise you will die. That's your other choice. So you become a very dedicated, passionate, disciplined person in order to... It's a slow progress, but you have to really, really have hit rock bottom completely. Or hit rock bottom multiple times before you can truly change, before you can become a virtuous, worthy of love, awesome person, that now has this passion. So you also have to have a mission and a passion and a purpose. You find your purpose in isolation and spending time alone. You find what truly, truly makes you happy at the very basic level, For me, it's creativity, creating. That makes me happier than anything else. And when you find that, you end up living for that. If that's your purpose, to create, there's more to that, more to my purposes than that. But I'm just giving you an example that now you're going to become a good artist eventually if you're that, or you were so unhealthy that now you have to turn your life around completely, otherwise you're dead. So now you become super, super knowledgeable about health, and you start researching and learning, studying, because without that knowledge, you have all this pain physically. Like, again, it goes back to if you're physically unhealthy also. You have all this pain, you have these other symptoms, you got these digestive issues, you got whatever. You're creating an entirely new person because you're gaining all this knowledge. You're developing all these skills. You're going to become a great artist. You're eventually, and you will eventually. It doesn't take that long when you're seriously passionate. And passion is created out of desperation. That's another idea and quote that I've had because it's happened to me. Passion simply is desperation. Desperation is the passion creator as well. So now you are creating this awesome self, right? So you're forming a self. You're really, truly forming a self. You're not just going by MTV and billboards, and you think you got to get the big house and the diamond ring and all the bullshit that doesn't mean anything, right? And meanwhile, and you're going to school because your parents told you to, and the job, you're supposed to get the job and make the money. And meanwhile, you're dead inside. You don't really have a soul. You don't know who you are. You don't know. You haven't been through anything really. You're kind of spoiled. This is not a valuable person that is you're not a cultured person that has anything to offer really. You might have material, physical things to offer. You got sex. You got the right family, or you got the right caste system, or you got whatever. But you don't have any real soul, really any real depth. You're basically all conditioning. So I can't love conditioning. I can't love a robot. Okay? So you each have to have a self. Okay? And that's how a self is formed. You have to have gone through serious pain. Otherwise, you're never going to become and find out who you really are. You have to challenge yourself and your potential to find out who you are. You have to go through a lot of different experiments and experiences. You have to experiment. You have to be willing to throw yourself on the gauntlet and challenge yourself. A lot of people just stay in their comfort zone, don't ever challenge themselves, so they don't ever come up against their illusions, right? They don't ever have to face them, or face their fears, or face all their problems in their life. They're not facing themselves ever, right? They're just going by entertainment, and they're living in denial, and they're all focused on just entertainment. That's what a lot of people are focused on in relationships. They just want to be entertained. They're just bored. They're a boring person. That's why they're bored. There's another insight I came to, that, I'm just bored. I'm always bored. There's nothing to do. Yes, I have that natural tendency also, but that was before. Now there's so much to do. There's so much positivity and value I can add. There's so many things I can create, so many videos I can talk about, so many things I can learn, so much awesome things to experience. How could you possibly be bored, right? Like, there's so much to do, and there's so little time. This happens when you're positive, and when you want to, create good things, and when you have switched your mind around, when you've thought enough negative thoughts, at some point it's destroyed your mind to where you're like, now you cannot experience one more negative thought, or you're not going to be able to take it anymore. So you learn cognitive behavioral therapy on your own. You basically end up blocking your thoughts before they destroy you, right? Not that you want to suppress things. You want to still be aware of it all, but you've been berating yourself. You've been berated so much by life, or by your circumstances, whatever's happened to you in your life, that you can take anything now at this point, and it just goes right off your shoulders, right? So anyway, what I'm getting to is that you both each need a self, okay? You have to be very two before you can be very one. And you don't really become one. You're just two separate entities, two unique personalities. You both have your unique individualities, yet you're going in the same direction. You're not becoming one. No. Okay, yeah, one love, that's the unconditional thing again. So let me throw... I want to talk about some Emerson on this subject, and I want to read some quotes from the essay Friendship, which is one of my favorite essays of all time. I think it's better than his essay on love, about the concepts of love and about love. I think Friendship, his essay, is better than his essay on love. So just want to go through some of these really cool quotes, which is going to ring true to some of this being an individual before you can... You have to have the fact that you have to have a self before you can, and you have to have a self before you can have no self. The Buddhist concepts of no self, and the saintliness and becoming a saint. Sainthood. In order to be a saint, you have to first. The path to sainthood is not immediately just throwing away yourself and serving others and whatnot. You have to have a self before you can throw away yourself, and before you can have no self, okay? You can't just get right there. It's not how it works. Our intellectual active... Oh, sorry. This one. Okay. Awesome Emerson quotes. Ralph Waldo Emerson. My favorite philosopher of all time. My favorite writer. Is it not that the soul puts forth friends as the tree puts forth leaves, and presently... by the germination of new buds extrudes the old leaf? The law of nature is alternation forevermore. Okay? Interesting quote. So this is kind of like about don't worry if you lose a love also, because your soul is continuing to progress, To have a self is not to say that you are a stagnant self. Your self is always going to be selfing and changing, right? You're always going to be progressing and changing, and your self concepts, they're always going to be evolving, right? If you're a real, you're not this set way ever. Okay, there is no self on that level. It's all, and your self is an evolution. You are an evolution, Yet these uneasy pleasures and fine pains, he's talking about friendships, these uneasy pleasures and fine pains are for curiosity and not for life. They are not to be indulged. This is to weave cobweb and not cloth. Interesting quote. The overindulgence in friendships because we can't be alone. A lot of people can't be alone. This is another problem that really creates a lot of problems in love. If you aren't capable of being by yourself, then you're not going to be capable of being with somebody without being too possessive, too clingy, it can work different for everybody. Remember, this applies mostly to Virgo males age 28, because that's who I am. And these are the thoughts that I've come to and the conclusions. This is mainly the stuff that this applies to Virgos especially. And I'm going to talk about astrology and the importance of sun, moon, Venus, rising sign, midheaven, some of this stuff in regard to love. So just wait for that. I don't know where I was going, but back to Emerson, and it'll jog my brain back to that. A friend, therefore, is a sort of paradox in nature. I who alone am, I who see nothing in nature whose existence I can affirm with equal evidence to my own, behold now the semblance of my being in all its height, variety, and curiosity, reiterated in a foreign form, so that a friend may well be reckoned the masterpiece of nature. Awesome quote. Right? I who see nothing in nature whose existence I can affirm with equal evidence to my own, but now I behold the semblance of my being in all its height, variety, and curiosity, reiterated in a foreign form. Another person is just like me. They both run marathons. They both run 12 milers. They both ride bikes 60 miles or whatever. That's awesome. I never knew anybody ever did. They both make t-shirts. I thought I was the only one that made my own t-shirts and drew my own t-shirt designs and stuff. Like, wow, I just met this other person that's, doing the same thing. Yet doing different, because they're their own self doing their own stuff. Yet it's the same thing. There's their own designs, their own ideas, yet similar values, So the designs are really representative of the same ideas and values and principles, but they're different designs, right? This is awesome because look, it's amazing, It feeds me reciprocal inspiration, reciprocal and mutual admiration. This is love. We both admire each other. They both inspire each other. Man, that guy, that girl, they just did that awesome thing. I wish I could do that, and I admire that. That inspires me, and so now I rise myself more to be at that level. When you both are rising each other, you see, this is real, awesome, perfect, extraordinary. This is what love really is, man. That you're both growing and rising, right? Improving. So, the condition which high friendship demands is the ability to do without it. That high office requires great and sublime parts. There must be very two before there can be very one. Okay, again, you have to be able to be capable of, you have to have the ability to do without people and without friendships and without love and without everything else. So you don't rely on anybody else for your happiness. You have to create your own happiness and your own fulfillment. Fulfillment is created. It's another insight I came to, a long time ago. Fun, fulfillment, people have the concept, the idea that fulfillment is something that comes to you. It's like, no, you have to be active. You have to create it and you have to put it into your life. You have to be active in the process of creating the fulfillment. Okay? You have to make your day. You can't have a good day. You have to make a good day, right? So, you have to be able to do without it. And you know, because then you, again, the big pet peeve of guys and girls, some of them, you don't want somebody who's too clingy, too possessive, who can't leave you alone. Everybody needs their space at some point, some more than others, of course, but I do think it is very important to have some time alone in order to reflect. Reflection is really an interesting process that really can keep you on track and keep you going where you want to go and whatever. Respect so far the holy laws of this fellowship as not to prejudice its perfect flower by your impatience for its opening. We must be our own before we can be another's. So impatience, right? This is a big problem. Nobody has any patience anymore, folks. We live in such a fast-paced society. Everything is go-go. You can have anything at the snap of your fingers. You can instantly have all these likes on Facebook, Instagram right away that are ego gratification, instantaneous ego gratification at your fingertips. If you post anything, it doesn't matter what it is nowadays. It could be a fucking cat puking, or it could be a piece of your turd, or what. It doesn't fucking matter. Nowadays, there's no more patience because there's no need for it anymore, right? And so, very few people, we don't have enough patience. You know, this has happened to me many times, that if you don't show interest, especially if you're a guy and you don't show interest in the opposite sex, so let's say you go out on a date, you know, and you don't, right, that first time you've ever met, you don't instantly, the first date that you've met, if you don't tell them or show to them or flirt with them that you are sexually attracted to them, if you don't show them that on the first date, or maybe the second, they might give you a second chance. By the second, you're done. They're moving on. There's so many other guys that will give them the entire world because they have a vagina and boobs that they're moving on. You know, I sometimes won't show them that right instantly. Sometimes I will, because I am interested in, I want to try and cultivate a friendship, because the impatience is what causes us to form all these improper, stupid, idiotic relationships that fuck us all up and hurt us and hurt everyone because we had sex too soon, because we weren't patient. Okay, but yet again, if you don't show them right away that you're interested in that, then they're off you and on to the next guy, because there's 1,000 others that are bang you whenever you want. It's snap of your fingers. There's a million others at the freaking fingertips. You can meet them online. You can meet them anywhere. It's easy. It's not difficult anymore, folks. You know, unless you have some kind of serious problem. But so we need to be patient. Really need to be patient, but we need to declare to other people that that's a value of ours, that we value patience, because we don't want to hurt another person. We don't want to jump into this, because once you have sex, the whole thing changes. You end up clinging to each other, and then it's the addiction comes in. It's really an addiction. Sex gives you the same pleasure as, what is it, cocaine or heroin, one of the two. You get the oxytocin flowing, right? You get the neurochemicals flowing that make you feel good. You know, serotonin release when you orgasm, etc. Right? The addiction comes then, the possession. It's all issues, and meanwhile you don't even know if you're this person's friend. You don't even know if you really like this person all that much. Your penis was talking, your head was talking, or your vagina was talking, and you weren't listening to your heart. You weren't listening to your past experience, you know, whatever. You weren't listening to your deepest values. So anyway, yet the least defect of self-possession vitiates, in my judgment, the entire relation. There can never be deep peace between two spirits, never mutual respect, until in their dialogue each stands for the whole world. Okay? The least defect of self-possession vitiates the entire relation. So if you don't have a self, if you don't possess your own self, if you don't know who you are, if you're not self-aware, okay, it destroys the whole relation right away, he's saying, right? You gotta have self-possession. You have to know who you are. And very few people know who they are. You gotta study yourself. You got to face it's difficult to know who you are, because you have to face all your inadequacies, all your shortcomings, all your problems, all your pain. You gotta face it. It's the only way to really know yourself, to go through it, to work your ways around it, figure out how to get around it, write about it, figure it out, get over it, right? Late, very late, we perceive that no arrangements, no introductions, no consuetudes or habits of society would be of any avail to establish us in such relations with them as we desire, but solely the uprise of nature in us to the same degree it is in them. Then shall we meet as water with water, and if we should not meet them then, we shall not want them, for we are already they. In the last analysis, love is only the reflection of a man's own worthiness from other men. Right? You can't expect this amazing person that has all this to offer when you're down here and you don't really, have a whole lot to offer. Because this is, you could see all this as a very selfish kind of love, right? But Ayn Rand, M. Scott Peck, Nathaniel Branden, these guys would make a very, very strong logical case that selfishness is the way to go. Their creed basically is selfishness, that you should be selfish, but they make a very good case for it, folks. And if you think about, not that I advocate that for every relationship at all times in every situation, no. There's thousands of different relationships. You can form them on being pool buddies. You play pool together. That's your relationship. You could be, you have sex, and that's your relationship. That's, this is not everything is love, but, and there's different kinds, right? So anyway, so you have to uprise your own nature to that level in order to make yourself worthy of having that kind of a person. You can't expect it if you are nowhere near there, right? And this is all a linear conversation based on ideals, and based on all these stupid things. Again, spiritually, on certain spiritual levels, different levels to this whole conversation. All this is garbage, what I'm saying, on a certain level, right? So, when you're talking from a different perspective about love, right? Our impatience betrays us into rash and foolish alliances which no God attends. By persisting in your path, though you forfeit the little, you gain the great. You demonstrate yourself so as to put yourself out of reach of false relations, and you draw to you the firstborn of the world, those rare pilgrims whereof only one or two wander in nature at once, and before whom the vulgar great show as specters and shadows merely. Okay? If you persist in your path, you're going to make yourself valuable. You make yourself worthy. You demonstrate yourself, and you put yourself out of reach of all these false, fake, nonsense relations, because you're at a certain level now, right? Again, not everything's all about this linear thing, up and down, and I'm here and I'm better than you and you're not as good as me. Different value systems. It's certain, but when it applies to relationship, romantic love, where you're going to be around that person a lot, you want this stuff to be, this to be very useful towards you both going upward. That's what it's all about, right? To me anyway. Maybe not to you. But that's me. I'm a very ambitious person. So I value other people that are very ambitious as well. I like other people that are ambitious, that want to get things done, want to do stuff, and want to make things happen in life. Because we got one shot at this, and this is a complicated shit. So awesome stuff on friendship. What else? Okay, let me do a little Nietzsche quote here. Is this Nietzsche? Yeah, The Gay Science, Nietzsche. Here and there on earth we may encounter a kind of continuation of love in which this possessive craving of two people for each other gives way to a new desire and lust for possession, a shared higher thirst for an ideal above them. Right? But who knows such love? Who has experienced it? Its right name is friendship. Right? Both have the same ideal, okay? It calls you upward, right? You both end up forming a better self, because you both end up better than you were before when you come together. That is a great relationship, when you both improve each other, make and feed each other, and because you have the same ideal, or because you have the same values, right? All companionship can All companionship can consist only in the strengthening of two neighboring solitudes. That's Rilke. Again, two neighboring solitudes. Let me get into some Rilke, and then I want to go on to some other things, but I have so many of these things to cover here. I want to talk to you about the quote that I came up with: "True love can only exist between two artists." That's there's a lot to it. It's very deep. To have knowledge is to love. Awesome quote I'm going to talk about. Let me do a little Rilke here. Okay, this is Rainier Maria Rilke on love and other difficulties. Some of my favorite passages from this one, because it goes along with this theme that I'm pounding into your skulls right now, that I will move to other subjects about. I hold this to be the highest task of a bond between two people, that each should stand guard over the solitude of the other. For if it lies in the nature of indifference and of the crowd to recognize no solitude, then love and friendship are there for the purpose of continually providing the opportunity for solitude. And only those are the true sharings which rhythmically interrupt periods of deep isolation. Okay, again, not everybody has a value for being alone. I think it's a very valuable thing to have time to yourself. Everybody's different. I'm going to talk about the astrology stuff, right? All companionship can consist only in the strengthening of two neighboring solitudes, whereas everything that one is wont to call giving oneself, wont, it's an old school word. It means accustomed to. So let me reread it. To be accustomed to. All companionship can consist only in the strengthening of two neighboring solitudes, whereas everything that one is wont to call giving oneself is by nature harmful to companionship, for when a person abandons himself, he is no longer anything. And when two people both give themselves up in order to come close to each other, there is no longer any ground beneath them, and their being together is a continual falling. Awesome quote. You know, there's no ground beneath you if you both are unselfish. This comes back to, the whole unconditional love thing. If everybody in the entire world was unselfish and unconditional, how would that even work? That wouldn't even work if you think about it, because everybody would be living for everyone else. So how would anybody be taking? I don't know. Maybe it would work if everybody was assigned a particular person or something, and I don't know. Maybe it would work. And I mean, I do see the value to some degree in arranged marriages in India, because it's basically saying, look, this is financially and astrologically and familial. This is the right person for you to be with, to be prosperous in this life. So we'll set you up. You're age 12. You're going to get married to this person, right? You may not know that person all that well, and there is a time period where you spend together before this all happens, but you're 12 years old and you're arranged. But I see to some degree the value of it, because you are now forced into a situation that you have to unconditionally love this person. What if you don't even like this person all that much, but it's decided that you're going to be married? Now you enter into a practice of compassion and unconditional love. I do think that's a very nutritive process. I don't know if that's how it should be gone about necessarily, but I see the value of it. However, you could argue scientifically that there is no unselfish act if you're talking about neurochemistry and neurology, because your brain is always rewarded when you perform an unselfish act. Your brain, there's a reward system to where you get a flood of, I think it's dopamine is what happens in a certain area of your brain that gets this reward, right? Dopamine is related to pleasure and reward, right? you get this flood of it in doing an unselfish act. So you could argue that that is selfish because your brain is feeling good. You're making your body feel good by doing it. So you could argue scientifically, and a lot of people do in neurochemistry, that there is no unselfish act because you're getting a reward for doing it on a physical neurochemical level. There is scarcely anything more difficult than to love one another. That it is work, day labor. God knows there is no other word for it. And look, added to this is the fact that young people are not prepared for such difficult loving, for convention has tried to make this most complicated and ultimate relationship into something easy and frivolous, has given it the appearance of everyone's being able to do it. It is not so. Okay, everybody thinks love is supposed to be easy. We just fall in love and, it happens, and it's just this magical thing and it's an easy thing. No, it's also work, and it's also, there's different levels to it. It depends on how long you've been together. And, it's complicated. It's a talent, it's a skill to learn, to love it. Yeah. In a way, you have to learn the skills of how, and almost like they talk about, gaming nowadays. Not gaming in video games, but the game. I'm trying to think of the words, but mystery. The guy on MTV or whatever. I don't know if he was on MTV. He was on some channel. Basically, figuring out how to talk to women. Okay, this is a skill. Not everybody naturally possesses this, right? So you start to figure out some techniques on how to do it. It's kind of, similar. You might see some better possibilities with love. But, of course, some of that is very manipulative. I see the limits of it. Whatever. Okay? All I'm saying is what he's saying. There are such relationships which must be a very great, almost unbearable happiness, but they can occur only between very rich natures and between those who, each for himself, are richly ordered and composed. They can unite only two wide, deep individual worlds. Okay, two very rich people. I consider myself a very cultured and richly cultured person, right? Because to be rich is to be full and deep of a lot of different things. If I dig down, if I'm looking for something in deep down in you and I find nothing there, nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You got to have something if you want to be with me, right? That's a song. You can't have nothing deep down there. If I'm digging for fire, I'm digging for some soul in there. If you're just a soulless robot and I dig, there's nothing down there. You haven't learned anything, got nothing to offer. There's just nothing there. Zero. It's just so bad and frustrating that, you have so much going on in here, right? And you're just talking to a freaking dead person, a robot, there's nothing there. It's bad. It's very bad sometimes, folks. That you can't find anything deep down there. Everyone's so shallow. A lot of shallow people. Okay, because they haven't been through hell. Okay, that really cultures you. It's one of my pet peeves before I go on with this is and one of my prerequisites is that you've gone through hell, because then you're not spoiled. If you're very spoiled, it's very hard for me to relate to you because I'm not spoiled. And you're going to blow up over every little tiny insignificant stupid little thing that means nothing at all to me on my level. My car blew up and somebody dinged your car and you go into a hissy fit or whatever and you're like, is this real life? I don't give a shit. Whatever. It's a fucking car. It doesn't mean anything. It's not real. We shouldn't even be driving the cars. We're just destroying the environment, and it's all crap, right? It doesn't mean anything. So you got somebody blowing up over insignificant nonsense, or they're all. It's very difficult to be with a spoiled person who's had everything handed to them in life and had it easy, because they're just. They might blow up because they. just very childish if they're blowing up over little stupid things like, I can't find my zit cream, god damn it, son of a bitch, or whatever the frick. It's just stupid. Okay. To take love seriously and to bear and to learn it like a task, this is young people, this is a typo, this is what young people need, to take love seriously and to bear and to learn it like a task. Okay, I really like Krishnamurti's ideas that education is to make someone serious, right? The right education is educating someone to be serious, because there's very few serious people out there. A lot of people aren't very serious either, okay? For me, I'm a very serious person. Again, everybody's different. You may be totally different. You want to have fun, whatever. Everyone has a different definition of fun, too. For me, I'm a very, very serious person. I take life very seriously. So I want somebody who's very serious, like me, okay? Again, these are fundamental principles. These are not... I'm not getting into specific, like, I want somebody that, I don't know, has a good family, and, I mean, that's, whatever, I don't even know, but you know what I'm saying, right? Family is important, of course. I want somebody with a good family, yeah. That's a bad example, but you know what I'm saying. Like so much else, people have also misunderstood the place of love in life. They have made it into play and pleasure because they thought that play and pleasure were more blissful than work. But there's nothing happier than work. And love, just because it is the extreme happiness, can be nothing else but work. So whoever loves must try to act as if he had a great work. He must be much alone and go into himself and collect himself and hold fast to himself. He must work. He must become something. Okay. I love, what's his name? What is his name? I'll come to it after I say the quote. Alan Watts. Okay, I love his quote that all pleasure depends upon not putting down a symbol of power, money, but upon disciplines. Right? He gives us an example about people buying yachts that are rich, and then they never actually use, or buy sailing ships, and then they never actually use them because they never learn the art of seamanship, because to learn the art of seamanship takes discipline to work at it to become a good sailor. They never actually use them. They just go on their yacht or their sailboat for the weekend for a party, and then that's it, right? So that's a quick pleasure, one night, it's gone. But to develop the art and the skill of seamanship, that is a discipline. All pleasure depends upon not putting down a symbol of power like money, but upon disciplines and work. That's the real pleasures come from working towards your dreams, working towards your goal, working towards your mission, your purpose, your values, your everything that you want to do and achieve and all that. That's where the fulfillment truly is. That's happiness. That's not pleasure. Okay, the difference between happiness and pleasure. I have a quote in a couple art pieces on that just say happiness or pleasure. Because happiness is long lasting. Pleasure is short lasting. It's very short. You have sex, that's pleasure, always comes with pain, never long lasting. You're empty the next day, right? But happiness, that is, to me, happiness is it's a fruitful study, as Emerson puts it. Happiness, I don't think he said happiness is, he said something else was, but I see it as a fruitful study. I see it as see happiness as bearing fruit out of your skull. Creating art pieces. Happiness as leaving your mark behind, helping other people, but also helping yourself and expressing yourself. There's a lot to it, but so you can't just, if creating is your happiness, if you feel the best from creating, right? That's what you feel the best from in life, then you got to get better at it. to feel more fulfilled. Because if you try and express yourself and you're a shitty drawer and you just suck because you've never put in the time and the discipline, right? You have to be very disciplined to be alone. You have to be very disciplined to, and it takes discipline. So love takes a lot of discipline. I'm going to talk about M. Scott Peck and what he talks about discipline and love and things. And, but you got to become a better artist if you really want to be fulfilled, if that's what makes you the most. You got to put in the time, the discipline. Otherwise, you can't express yourself in the way that you want to, right? So you're going to be more fulfilled when you develop these skills that really help you to express what you want to express in life, okay? For believe me, the more one is, the richer is all that one experiences. The more one is, the richer is all that one experiences. You can't expect rich experiences if you are yourself not rich inside. And whoever wants to have a deep love in his life must collect and save for it and gather honey. Okay, you must make yourself valuable. To love is good too. Love being difficult, for one human being to love another, that is perhaps the most difficult of all tasks. The ultimate, the last test and proof, the work for which all other work is but preparation. Okay, you're preparing yourself for this ultimate love, right? You're gathering honey. You're making yourself valuable. And then meanwhile, you've done so much of that your entire life. You've gotten to this high level to where you are a very valuable person. People will pay you for your time. People love you. They want to be around you all the time because you're just you possess a lot of knowledge and you're exchanging value constantly. You're adding to them. You're full of awesome facts and cool little insights and just interesting things. You know a lot about music and art, and you know a lot about every subject on earth, geography, travel, whatever. You got a lot to offer to that person. You have a lot of answers. You know a lot about health, or you know a lot about whatever. You got a lot of answers for everybody that they don't have because they haven't taken the time to gather honey, cultivate knowledge. To have knowledge is to love. That's where that quote I really think is so awesome, because I really think it's a very conscientious thing to do, and a very heartfelt thing to do, and a very, I guess conscientious is the best word I can think of right now, that you don't want to be a drain on society, right? You don't want to be a drain on other people. You don't want to, you want to be a hero. You want to be a source of admiration and inspiration to others and things. So, but it's a very conscientious thing to gather knowledge, because you're like, well, I'm basically, with the knowledge that I have, I can now help other people, right? I can now help other people. It's a conscientious thing to do, to gather knowledge, because then you can be a source of help to others. Okay, if you don't have anything to offer, you don't have any knowledge, you can't be worthy of love or capable of love or be valuable enough to, again, be worthy of love. I know I'm going over this over and over, but I got a lot of other things to say, and I'm lacking the ability to express myself right now because it's late at night, a long day as always, and I'm trying my best here, folks. So, but I'm giving you a lot of good stuff. Maybe I'll come back to that thought, because to have knowledge is to love. I really feel that such a deep level is true. Let's do a little M. Scott Peck, okay? This is, what is this? The Road Less Traveled? The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. When we love something, it is of value to us. And when something is of value to us, we spend time with it, time enjoying it and time taking care of it. Again, this comes back to the time thing, patience. You know, there's just so little time in life nowadays. People, I really feel that if we had more time, relationships would be a lot better. Relation bicycles, relation kayaks would be a lot better. Because so many people have so little time, especially in America. Maybe other slower paced cultures, they're not so. It's not such a problem. But because there's so little time, we are trying to grab at the quickest pleasure and entertainment that we can get out of this small, tiny little sector of our little universe and our little world, in order to get that quick pleasure, because there's so little time. So we don't really have the time. A lot of people don't have the time to cultivate friendships. Friendships take a lot of time, spending a lot of time together and learning about each other, really truly learning about each other, asking a lot of questions. Just really asking questions is so important. There's so many questions to ask out there. Keep asking them, and take the time and have the value of, have the the goal of being somebody's friend, because you can't, you're not gonna have a good relationship with someone until you are their friend and you really like them a lot, or if you don't like them, then don't be in a relationship with them. But you don't know until you can actually become their friend. If you can't become their friend, then don't do it. It's just not enough time anymore, folks. So if we had 4 days off a week and we worked 3 days, or we had 5 days off a week and only worked 2 days of our lives, we'd have all the time in the world for, hey, call up my friend, I haven't seen him in a while. You start thinking about other things that you've let fall by the wayside. Like, I haven't seen, you spend more time together. Just naturally you end up spending more time together so you can have better everything, so I just wish we had more time. You have to make time, but it's sometimes difficult to do. Let's see what else we got here. But, what he's saying is, you got to spend time. If you value something, you're going to want to spend time. If you don't value it, you're not going to want to spend a whole lot of time. If you value, the other thing that that's interesting is, I really think it's important to have as number one, to have your mission or your purpose in life as number one. You have to find your purpose first, which goes back to that whole finding yourself conversation we had about 30 minutes ago. And then you don't always have to know what your purpose is at all times in your life. It's, sometimes it takes a while to know what you want. And even then, you may change it. It's an evolving. But it's, to have your mission and purpose as number one and your relationship as number two, I think that's important, to buffer that clinginess that could occur. And if each person isn't really passionate about life, doesn't love themselves, doesn't have a purpose, then they're going to end up looking to you for a self, looking to you for their purpose. It's a very bad situation. So you got to each be very ambitious going toward your dreams and purposes and mission. Have a mission in life that you're very passionate about. That will prevent that being around each other too much and prevent too much attachment and too much codependency. It fostered two strong, unique individuals that when they come together, it's great, and they're not overindulging in they're not too married with each other. They're not too together, but there's so much to say. You guys, this video I'm sure will be attacked by somebody out there because they're gonna misunderstand what I'm saying, and there's so many other things to say about all this, and you can't cover it all in a video. I define love thus: the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. Interesting definition. Spiritual growth. I believe it will become clear that not only do self-love and love of others go hand in hand, but that ultimately they are indistinguishable. Of all the misconceptions about love, the most powerful and pervasive is the belief that falling in love is love, or at least one of the manifestations of love. But two problems are immediately apparent. The first is that the experience of falling in love is specifically a sex-linked erotic experience. We do not fall in love with our children, even though we may love them very deeply. We do not fall in love with our friends of the same sex unless we are homosexually oriented, even though we may care for them greatly. We fall in love only when we are consciously or unconsciously sexually motivated. Okay, M. Scott Peck, this guy's a psychologist, psychiatrist as well, I believe. Same difference, sort of. His thoughts are very specific. He's got a very specific mindset about all this. There's certain gaps, I think, in some of his ideas, but they're very interesting. Okay. But most of us feel our loneliness to be painful and yearn to escape from behind the walls of our individual entities to a condition in which we can be more unified with the world outside of ourselves. The experience of falling in love allows us this escape temporarily. The essence of the phenomenon of falling in love is a sudden collapse of a section of an individual's ego boundaries, permitting one to merge his or her identity with that of another person. We and our beloved are one. Loneliness is no more. In some respects, but certainly not in all, the act of falling in love is an act of regression. The experience of merging with the loved one has in it echoes from the time when we were merged with our mothers in infancy. Okay, very interesting. Okay, people that can't be alone. Again, he's talking about it here. Love as a regression could be, not love, but falling in love, okay? This whole falling in love business, he sees to some degree as could be a regression, of sucking on your mom's teat when you're a little baby, One by one, gradually or suddenly, the ego boundaries snap back into place. Gradually or suddenly, they fall out of love. Once again, they are two separate individuals. At this point, they begin either to dissolve the ties of their relationship or to initiate the work of real loving. Okay, the falling in love just doesn't last always, because you end up realizing over time, because you jumped into your relationship too quickly, you went with the sex too quickly, and now your ego boundaries are snapping back into a place. You're becoming, you're realizing that this person doesn't want to go out to dinner, but I do, and, you fight, and it's just, the perception that we are loving when we fall in love is a false perception. Falling in love is not an extension of one's limits or boundaries. It is a partial and temporary collapse of them. The extension of one's limits requires effort. Falling in love is effortless. Lazy and undisciplined individuals are as likely to fall in love as energetic and dedicated ones. When limits are extended or stretched, however, they tend to stay stretched. Real love is a permanently self-enlarging experience. Falling in love is not. Falling in love has little to do with purposively nurturing one's spiritual development. If we have any purpose in mind when we fall in love, it is to terminate our own loneliness and perhaps ensure this result through marriage. Certainly we are not thinking of spiritual development. Okay, the romantic love now. He's the myth of romantic love. He's calling it's a myth. I mean, the myth implies that there is only one man meant for a woman and only one woman meant for a man. And this has been predetermined in the stars, okay? I'm going to talk about astrology, don't worry. Numerology, too. Mr. and Mrs. F acknowledge to each other that they have fallen out of love, then proceed to make each other miserable by mutual rampant infidelity as they each search for the one true love, not realizing that their very acknowledgement could mark the beginning of the work of their marriage instead of its end. Even when couples have acknowledged that the honeymoon is over, that they are no longer romantically in love with each other and are able still to be committed to their relationship, they still cling to the myth and attempt to conform their lives to it. Even though we have fallen out of love, if we act by sheer willpower as if we still were in love, then maybe romantic love will return to our lives, their thinking goes. These couples prize togetherness. When they enter couples group therapy, which is the setting in which my wife and I and our close colleagues conduct most serious marriage counseling, they sit together, speak for each other, defend each other's faults, and seek to present to the rest of the group a united front. Okay, this is not the end of the quote, but speak for each other. If I ask you, what is your favorite, give me your, what kind of music do you like? And you look to your partner, that's a bad sign, okay? That is a bad sign. That means you've forgotten who you are. You don't even know who you are. You don't even have a self. You look to your partner, I don't know, what do I like again? That's really bad, okay? You speak for each other. Defend each other's faults, seek to present to the rest of the group a united front, believing this unity to be a sign of the relative health of their marriage and a prerequisite for its improvement. Sooner or later, and usually sooner, we must tell most couples that they are too much married, too closely coupled, and that they need to establish some psychological distance from each other before they can even begin to work constructively on their problems. Sometimes it is actually necessary to physically separate them, directing them to sit apart from each other in the group circle. It is always necessary to ask them to refrain from speaking for each other or defending each other against the group. Over and over again we must say, "Let Mary speak for herself, John. John can defend himself, Mary. He's strong enough." Ultimately, if they stay in therapy, all couples learn that a true acceptance of their own and each other's individuality and separateness is the only foundation upon which a mature marriage can be based and real love can grow. Okay, separateness, individuality. I remember watching a TED talk on mathematics and love, or mathematics and marriage, or mathematics and relationships. I forget what it was called. And it was basically saying the couples that stayed together the longest were actually the couples that compromised the least. In essence, the couples that were the most individual, that were very separate individuals, that had a lot of separation, right, between each other. They weren't too much coupled, too much married. They compromised very little. They stayed together longer. This is a TED talk, mathematics of sex or something like that. I also remember a Facebook thing I saw on Facebook about some study that couples that unfriended each other on Facebook actually had better relationships or better marriages, or stayed together longer also, or something. I forget the exact, but basically it was spouses that unfriended each other had better marriages or something. That's what it was, I think. Interesting, right? And then another person made a comment that, yeah, if you have to unfriend your spouse, then you don't have a good relationship to begin with. That's a valid point. You could see it that way, but you could also see it the other way. So you can see it either way. It is obvious and generally understood that sexual... I'm almost done with this book, sort of, and other subjects. It is obvious and generally understood that sexual activity and love, while they may occur simultaneously, often are disassociated because they are basically separate phenomena. In itself, making love is not an act of love. I like this quote that I kind of mentioned earlier. The path to sainthood goes through adulthood. I do not want to live. I cannot live without my husband. I love him so much. Okay, this is what one person says. I can't live without my husband. I love him. I love her so much. I can't live without them. And then when I respond, as I frequently do, he says, "You are mistaken. You do not love your husband." "What do you mean?" is the angry question. "I just told you I can't live without him." I try to explain. What you describe is parasitism, not love. Two people love each other only when they are quite capable of living without each other but choose to live with each other. I define dependency as the inability to experience wholeness or to function adequately without the certainty that one is being actively cared for by another. Dependency in physical, healthy adults is pathological. It is sick, always a manifestation of a mental illness or defect. Passive dependent people are so busy seeking to be loved that they have no energy left to love. Right, again, if your whole goal in life is seeking love and to be loved, you will never find it because you will not be respected. you will not present a self. You will not have anything of your own going on that the other person's going to want to benefit, that it's just, I don't know how to explain it, but I really hope you understand what I'm saying, folks. It makes such logical, perfect sense. I can't even come up with examples that it's so deeply ingrained into my being. It's just like there. Like, that's how it is, man. They're like starving people, scrounging wherever they can for food, and with no food of their own to give to others. It is as if within them they have an inner emptiness, a bottomless pit crying out to be filled, but which can never be completely filled. Again, fulfillment is made. You got to make fulfillment. Can't expect it to come to you. They never feel fulfilled or have a sense of completeness. They always feel a part of me is missing. They tolerate loneliness very poorly because of their lack of wholeness. They have no real sense of identity. And they define themselves solely by their relationships. Okay? These guys can put it in better words than I can. But these are my sentiments. It does not matter what their identity is as long as there is someone to give it to them. Again, you look into other people to give you a self. Consequently, their relationships, although seemingly dramatic in their intensity, are actually extremely shallow. Unselfishness is a great virtue. But you still gotta have balance, folks, okay? Balance. You gotta have some selfishness. You can't have all unselfishness. Unless you're a Buddhist monk and it's a whole nother different scenario. That's a different level. Consequently, their relationships, although seemingly dramatic in their intensity, are actually extremely shallow because of the strength of their sense of inner emptiness and the hunger to fill it. Passive dependent people will brook no delay in gratifying their need for others. I asked them to speak of their goals in terms of what life situations they wanted to find themselves in 5 years hence. In one way or another, each of them replied, I want to be married to someone who really cares for me. Not one mentioned holding down a challenging job, creating a work of art, making a contribution to the community, being in a position where he or she could love or even have children. The notion of effort was not involved in their daydreams. They envisioned only an effortless, passive state of receiving care. I told them, as I tell many others, if being loved is your goal, you will fail to achieve it. The only way to be assured of being loved is to be a person worthy of love, and you cannot be a person worthy of love when your primary goal in life is to passively be loved. This is not to say that passive dependent people never do things for others, but their motive in doing things is to cement the attachment of the others to them so as to assure their own care. Okay, this is the chapter on dependency. Almost done with this, folks. Theirs is the addictive personality. They are addicted to people, sucking on them, gobbling them up. And when people are not available to be sucked and gobbled, they often turn to the bottle or the needle or the pill as a people substitute. In summary, dependency may appear to be love because it is a force that causes people to fiercely attach themselves to one another. But in actuality, it is not love. It is a form of anti-love. It has its genesis in a parental failure to love, and it perpetuates the failure. It seeks to receive rather than to give. It nourishes infantilism rather than growth. It works to trap and constrict rather than to liberate. Ultimately, it destroys rather than builds relationships, and it destroys rather than builds people. Just good quotes, folks. Good stuff. Good excerpts. Yet it is possible for us to desire that other humans develop a will of their own. Indeed, it is this desire for the differentiation of the other that it is one of the characteristics of genuine love. To desire that the person you're with have their own self and a will of their own is one of the signs of genuine love, he says. Which is what I desire for other people, because I want them to love themselves. And, a lot of people with very, very low self-esteem are going to be the ones that are the most unselfish. Depends. Again, always depends. Not everybody. Many different types of people out there. Another very major misconception about love, that it is self-sacrifice. Okay, that would be like the Pisces kind of sentiment, in astrology. I have said that love is an action, an activity. This leads to the final major misconception of love, which needs to be addressed. Love is not a feeling. When love exists, it does so with or without cathexis, and with or without a loving feeling. It is easier indeed, it is fun, to love with cathexis and the feeling of love. But it is possible to love without cathexis and without loving feelings, and it is in the fulfillment of this possibility that genuine and transcendent love is distinguished from simple cathexis. So now he's kind of talking more about universal love, I feel like, to some degree. Genuine love is volitional rather than emotional. A commitment to be loving whether or not the loving feeling is present. Commitment to love. True love is not a feeling by which we are overwhelmed. It is a committed, thoughtful decision. Love is as love does, but since it requires the extension of ourselves, love is always either work or courage. Okay, these guys are all in agreement that I'm reading, right? These are all similar ideas. Finally, it is only when one has taken the leap into the unknown of total selfhood, psychological independence, and unique individuality, individuation. That's the process of becoming yourself, of individuating, becoming differentiated, becoming different from everyone else. This is psychology. This is Carl Jung. That one is free to proceed along still higher paths of spiritual growth and free to manifest love in its greatest dimensions. Only when you leap into the unknown of total selfhood, psychological independence, and unique individuality. Okay, one more quote, and two more quotes, and three more quotes, and we're moving on from this book. It's a long book. Self-discipline is usually love, translated into action, but also that any genuine lover behaves with self-discipline, and any genuinely loving relationship is a disciplined relationship. You have to have discipline in love. Okay? You have to have honesty. You have to not be scared to hurt another's feelings by being honest with them. When I genuinely love, I am extending myself, and when I am extending myself, I am growing. The more I love, the longer I love, the larger I become. Genuine love is self-replenishing. The more I nurture the spiritual growth of others, the more my own spiritual growth is nurtured. I am a totally selfish human being. I never do something for somebody else, but that I do it for myself. And as I grow through love, so grows my joy, ever more present, ever more constant. Okay, this is the author saying this, that he's a completely selfish person. Because when you see selfishness from the level of what these guys describe it as, it's logical, it's makes a lot of sense. Ayn Rand, you need to read a lot about Ayn Rand and Nathaniel Branden on that subject of being selfish. It's a whole philosophy of selfishness. Let me see if I missed anything. I have some other things to say. Okay, let me talk about astrology, finally, and numerology. So in astrology, you have your sun, your moon, your midheaven, your rising sign, all these different things. So Venus in astrology is something to look at as far as love, because Venus is the planet of love, the planet of relationships, the planet of partnerships, the planet of beauty, art, poetry, things of this nature. Venusian, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Women are from Venus, right? So looking at where your Venus is in your chart may give you an indication of the area in your life or the characteristics that you most appreciate and you are most apt to love, to be in love with, are in possibly where your Venus is. So if your Venus is in Virgo, you're going to admire and appreciate Virgo qualities more than maybe other signs and other kinds of personality traits and virtues. You're gonna value the virtues that a Virgo has over, let's say you are also a Virgo and your Venus is in Virgo. You're gonna be really focused on loving yourself more than anything else. Then maybe, unless you know a lot of Virgos and you love another, this is a possibility, and that's a foundation for being capable of love anyway, in my opinion. So Venus is something to look at. Your moon is something to look at, because that's kind of like your emotional nature. If you both have the same moon sign, like in the same sign, your moon in the same sign, or your moon in the same house, or something like that, then you may have both this same emotional nature that you can kind of relate on that emotional level. That for me has worked out well. My best friend is got the same moon sign as me. Your midheaven could be a big thing because you could relate on the level of career and your ambition and the direction you're headed. That's kind of the midheaven. Your status and what you're going to your status in society, what you're going to represent to people, and what you're going after, in a sense, your path, your mission almost, or things like that. You can think about the midheaven. It's kind of like the direction of your chart, of where it's headed. You both have the same there, then it's kind of like having the same values almost. You both have Sagittarius midheaven, let's say. You both really value philosophy. You're both headed towards being more philosophical, and you both are optimistic, and you both are... so you have some similarities in some of the values that Jupiter values. Freedom loving and travel. You both value freedom a lot. That could be great. Again, opposites attract. I remember a lady telling me opposites attract, but likes stay together. I think you got to have a mixture of both. Again, same values, so there's the likes. Opposite vices or opposite virtues, there's the opposites. I think you need a little of each. Your rising sign, is kind of your persona, what you're projecting towards outwardly, socially. But rising sign is very important in ancient Chaldean astrology and Vedic astrology. Rising sign and moon sign are very important. Rising sign kind of sets the tone for your entire chart. The planet that rules the rising sign kind of sets the tone and is the chart ruler. But I think Venus and the moon are the primary, and the midheaven are the primary ones to look at. If let's say your girlfriend's sun sign is, Taurus, and your moon is in Taurus, you might really emotionally connect with Taurus kind of stuff, and her sun sign is Taurus, so that's, that's very interesting. Or again, if your moons are in the same sign or in the same houses, that's good. So things like that. Plus there's also the elements: earth, fire, water. Water soothes earth. Water's good for earth, because it's kind of opposite, but yet water is on the earth. It's they're not quite opposite. They're kind of complementary. And then you got two earth signs. That's the trine. You got Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo. So if you're a Virgo, a Capricorn, and a Taurus, you might relate very well on that earthy kind of level, all the earthy qualities. So you have that in common. So you might have similar values in that way, similar principles or similar needs in that way. But again, you want some opposite. If you're both fire signs, it could be a bad thing too. Again, if you're too much the same, if you're both fire signs, you're both arguing all the time, you're both aggressive, egotistical a-holes. Not that every fire sign is completely that, but those are some of the fire stuff. Just quick-tempered and all that, and action. You're associated with action. Then you're both acting too much. You're both too impulsive. You're not thinking before you act enough. You're both risk takers. These things can get you in trouble if you're both too much fire. You can burn each other up. You don't want water to put out the fire. That wouldn't necessarily work either. But water and earth go well. I feel like air and fire, that could work because the oxygen feeds the fire, but it could also be bad too. It's you gotta just look at a lot of different things and study it. Numerology, um, if you're both the same life path, that's kind of like having the same, you're both going to be going through the same kind of experiences in life, same life path number. Say you both are number 5 and you both value freedom. If you're a number 5 and then the other person's life path is, say, a number, or let's say, let's say a number 5 and a number 6. The other person's a number 6. The number 6 is more about home, family, security, responsibility, duty, and things of that nature, and serving others. Whereas the 5 is all about freedom loving and kind of exploring and kind of scattering their energy, and kind of opposites in a way. Almost like, a lot of people say it's not compatible to have, to be right next to each other in astrology. Like if you're an Aquarius and a Capricorn, not compatible because you're right next to each other. That's considered not very compatible in astrology. In numerology, it can be similar. Like, 5 comes right before 6 and 6 comes right after 5. They're right next to each other. They can be very, very different. So there can be some clashes there. However, if you have the same destiny number, both destiny number 5s, you could see how that might work out, because, ultimately before you die, you want to achieve the same things, even though you're going about it in a different way. You're going about achieving it in a different way, but at the end result, you want it to be the same thing, But 3, 6, and 9 are considered compatible. 1, 5, and 7 in numerology considered compatible numbers, and 2, 4, and 8 are considered compatible. And then you have toxic numbers. You have I forget everything else, but so look into astrology. Those are some interesting little tidbits and insights. If you're both life paths, or let's say you're a life path number 1 and they're a life path number 5, you're gonna have some similarities there. So again, you want some similarities, but you want to find opposite vices. Look at what those person's vices are. If they got the same vices as you, I don't know if it's going to work out. It's at least not going to be easy. You're just going to have to work at it more. Just don't forget that this is work, and you can manifest and have whatever relationship you want to have. I believe in you that you can do and have anybody you want, and no matter who, no matter what astrology or numerology, you can work it out. You can figure it out if you both are conscious enough, aware enough, not too programmed, not too delusional, and really both enjoy self-awareness and self-improvement, both have that value at least. Then you can both be in the conversation of each other's shortcomings and all that kind of stuff that most people don't want to go into. They just want to fight about on the surface. They just want to fight on the surface about surface nonsense. I want a person that's curious and open-minded. I have an art piece that I'll show you at the end. She hasn't even looked at my bookshelf yet. That's what it says. It's like, somebody comes in your house, you've hung out with them for like 15 times, and they've been in your house 15 times hanging out with you. They still haven't even looked at your giant ass bookshelf where all this new conversation could be. Like, let's talk about all these books I've read, or if I go into your house. I'm a very curious person when I go in, and so when I go into people's houses, I'm like, wow, look at that on the wall. What's that about? And what? Oh, that's cool. And tell me about that. And I notice things, and I'm interested. I'm an interested person, and I'm curious, and I'm awake and aware. A person that comes in your house, they're just dead. They're not awake. They're not aware of what's around them. There's just no awareness there. They're just not awake. You're not interested in life and curious. Either that, or they're just very reserved, or and keep things to themselves, and they're judging and they don't want to say too much, or whatever. Whatever. Another one I have, I'll show you at the end. It says, maybe you haven't met the right you yet. People are always like, I just haven't met the right person yet. It's all going to click, and everybody's just waiting for that right Prince Charming to come along. It's all this waiting game. Maybe you just haven't met the right you yet. You haven't become the right person within your own self yet. in order to find, because that's what draws to you the people that you want. You draw into you shitty people, that's because you're a shitty person. That's just the way it is. That is quantum physics at the basic level. And you know, some people will say this is not really quantum physics, but this is quantum physics. Yes, it is. And yeah, it's just more complicated than that, but on the basic level, that's how it works. Check out the drama triangle. Numerologically, the word love comes out to a number 9. I think that's very interesting because number 9 is actually associated with the humanitarian, the universal love, the divine love, love for all, brotherly love. Humanitarian. The word compassion is number 7, very similar to number 9. Number 7 is ruled by Neptune, which is Pisces, which is the humanitarian in the zodiac. So there's this component here of universal love and unconditional love as well. Heart, the word heart comes out to a number 7. It's very, very interesting. Number 7 and number 9 showing up in these words. I wonder if you go back to the ancient Greek words and dissect those. You have eros. The Greek word eros basically means sexual passion. That's one of the words for different kinds of love in Greek. Eros is sexual passion. Basically, philia is basically deep friendship. Ludus is a playful kind of love, flirtatious kind of thing. Agape, or love for everyone. This would be the universal, unconditional kind of love. Pragma, or long-standing love. Philodia or Philotia, I don't know how to pronounce these exactly, I'm not Greek, or love of the self. Those are some of the Greek concepts. You should check them out. They're pretty interesting to research and delve into. Just kind of giving you whatever's left of what I have to say here. True love can only exist between two artists. I want to talk about this real quick because this was an idea that I had because I'm an artist. I'm a very creative person. And I really feel like a lot of people are victims in life, and they don't realize how creative they can be and how much activity they can have over their own life and how much sovereignty they can have and control they can have over their own life by creating what they want in life. So at the foundational basic kind of thing, true love can only exist between two people who value creativity, people who believe that they can be a source of they can have an effect on their life and have an effect on the world and create, people that can people that believe in themselves. You have to believe in to create. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have something down in there, deep in you, to come out, to actually create something too. You have to have some deep thought and idea that you want to express to be a creator as well. So all these things that I'm talking about, artists are those things. Artists are not programmed by the masses. They're usually blowing in the face of the masses. They're not conditioned. Artists aren't worried about money as much, and money is important, but they're generally focused on expressing vast ideas, big ideas that are going to change humanity. So all this stuff, to me, true love can only exist between two artists. To see yourself as an artist of yourself, a chiseling away at, again, brings in the self-improvement thing, to value self-improvement. You're capable of love then. In this conversation, and artists are this way generally, I feel like, because they're deep inside, they're living that inner life, they're focused, they're trying to catch each inspiration and thought they have and get it down on paper and figure out the concept, design it, whatever. they're following the trails of each one of their little insights and thoughts, and that means that they believe that their thoughts are important. They believe that they have something to say that's important, that they can be an effect in their life, more so than other professions and other people, I would say. So that's where this quote comes from. I think it's a very awesome quote that I came up with. True love can only exist between two artists. Think about the word artist in a very broad sense. Don't think about somebody just drawing, you know. Everybody is an artist. Everybody's a creator. We are all God. We are all unique individuals that are here, that have never been here in this arrangement, and we can arrange things in a brand new way, and that's what creativity often really is. It's just arranging things that are already here in a way that hasn't been done before. I just see a lot of depth to that quote. And, yeah. We're not friends long enough before we have sex. It's a big problem. Alcohol gets us together too quick, and our penises talk for us. It's a big problem. Loading up the unconscious. Yeah. You have to be alone. And I like this from a Carl Jung documentary, Matter of Heart, it was called, I believe. So you have to be willing to be lonely to load up the unconscious. This is what artists do too. You know, you consume a lot of knowledge, or whatever your process is for inspiration to help you get art out, whatever it may be, if you're a writer or whatever. For me and for a lot of them, you just have to consume a lot of thoughts and ideas. Through reading oftentimes helps me. Or you have to be alone, and you have to be alone a lot to be thinking about those and be paying attention to all those little things in your mind, and living that inner life and inner world so that it can then manifest. And building that unconscious, you have to support the unconscious, you know, this lady says in it, and then it manifests. And that's why you have to be willing to be lonely. And I just see this all in relation to love. I hope somebody sees this like me, because I see it very important to the talk about love, all this stuff. You may think it's some other subjects I'm rambling about, but I see this very essential and integral to this whole thing. You know, and the unconscious. So, you know, this lady says, I was often alone for 3 weeks on end, and I hadn't spoken one word to one person, but the unconscious became alive. It was my partner. So in a sense, you don't need other people if you're cultivating within you all this stuff. You know, if you're very deep and you have a lot of your own inner life to look after. And that's why artists like to be alone from time to time to gather and reflect, you know. You know, Krishnamurti says, you know, intellectually we are crippled, you know. We are second-hand people. So intellectually I'm a slave, and therefore I become sentimental. You know, you never think for yourself. Second-hand people, you know, we're taking everything at second-hand. We're not our own people. We're just repeating what we've read and repeating what we've heard and repeating. We never thought of our own stuff about all this. We never thought for ourselves and made our own definitions of love. Or I think everybody should write their own dictionary in their head. You should have your own definitions of every single word, because every word is defined differently by different people. You know, fun to me is not going out to the bar and partying and getting drunk. Fun to me is working towards a goal. Fun to me is making this video that is going to teach people and help expand awareness and consciousness. You know, fun to me is discipline, and it's not going out to the bar. Different definitions of different words. So because we're slaves to the conditioning, we're not ourselves. We become secondhand people. we all that we have left, because we don't have any of our own thing, all that we have left is just going after sex and pleasure and entertainment. That's what we go after. It's a big problem when you're looking to another person to entertain you. You shouldn't look for that in love. Of course, it's nice to use the will of another person at times, to borrow the will of the ball, like that movie Awakenings with the guys that got their arms like this. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but to borrow the will of another person, sometimes when you're lazy, you do that. That's like looking for entertainment, because you're lacking willpower. You just feel bored with yourself. You're kind of over yourself and all your own stuff that's going on. You just reached a point where you've exhausted your creative output, or and you have a moment of like, I don't know, I'm kind of bored with myself. So you call up somebody else and you go look to them for entertainment. If that's your everyday, that's a bad thing. If you're living for entertainment, in my opinion, you should be, living for learning and teaching and creating and some of these more awesome things, in my opinion. Two individuals on a mission of their own. So, some prerequisites that are required from me to fall in love with somebody, or to be in love. I know I said fall in love is kind of an illusory, stupid thing, but to be in love with somebody, to be in love, that's a whole nother, this is complicated stuff. But for lack of better terminology, to be in love with somebody, they have to have gone through hell, number one. They have to have been alone a lot, number two. And they have to have a mission or purpose, number three. Those are the three main requirements that are important. Number four, from going through all that, you create a self. So if you had to say number four requirement for me, this is just for me. Everybody, you define it for yourself. I'm just giving you every other way to think about it that you've probably never thought about. This is what I think about. I want an open-minded person. You can't have somebody that's not open-minded. That sucks, the whole monogamy, polygamy thing, I do think it's somewhat selfish and somewhat limited to only focus on loving just one person. And I think we should try to love everybody to some degree. And I really think the monogamy thing, it's difficult to look to one person to provide everything for you and be your everything. That's a bad scenario, I think, too. If people look to another person to provide everything. A lot of people don't have enough friends that just by default that happens. They don't have enough going on. They don't have their own life, their own stuff going on. They don't have a whole big social, they don't have a lot going on. They don't have a lot of friends. They end up relying, especially because their life is so limited and small, relying on that one spouse or that one person to provide them with all their needs and everything that they want. And nobody is capable of that. Granted, a deeper, more cultured, self-aware individual who's got a lot to offer will be more capable of that than another, but it's a bad scenario, in my opinion, to rely on you need to have a whole bunch of other friendships, so you don't by default just unconsciously force this other person, and then you get mad at this other person that they're not like. If you have enough fulfillment coming from other people, there's less stress and tension put and less emphasis put on this one person to provide everything for you. Right? It's an interesting quote. Getting along with the opposite sex is an art rather than a science mastered by reasoning. Michelangelo, I want to talk real quick about Michelangelo because this movie, one of my favorite movies, Agony in the Ecstasy. There's a quote in it that this artist, Michelangelo, is saying to this woman that's courting him. He says, I've wondered about that. I've wondered if I was, maybe there's something wrong with me because I don't love or whatever. He's kind of basically saying, but he's really saying, he says, but I'm filled with love, just of a different kind. God, he talks about this poem that he wrote to this chick. He thought he was in love once. He loved her, and he wrote this poem, this sonnet, and then he realized that it was just ridiculous. It was just because it meant nothing to him. It meant less than nothing. He thought that he was in love, and then he said, maybe God crippled me. To other men he gives home and family and children and warmth, and to me he gives, and the lady says, a monastery, and he says, no, he says, no, he says, I'm filled with love, but of a different kind, because he's saying, I can't, he's saying, I was in love with you once, chick, but I'm not, he says, there's no room in me for love. There's no room in me for love. I find that very interesting for such a great artist like that. Not that he exactly said that verbatim, but this is the sentiment that came out of the movie and the quotes in the movie. I'm filled with love, but of a different kind. God gave me the power to create, and to form and fashion marble after man's likeness, or whatever he says. And filled with love, but only here, only in these. He's a creator, he's an artist. He loves big, grand things, grand ideas. He loves universal, he loves all. By doing his art, he's loving all, because he's leaving something behind for all to admire and all to love. Some people, there's in numerology, numbers 1 through 3 are focused on the small kind of living with the personal one-to-one relationships, and then 4 through 6 are focused on the many. They're more about the many, which is like a larger group of people. Maybe they got maybe they're 20 or 30 friends that they have, or 10 or 20 friends that they have. And or 40 or 50 or whatever, somewhere in that range. And then there's numbers 6 through 9 that are living for the all. They really want to leave something behind for everybody, for all mankind. They want to change the world. These people, they're filled. They have that kind of love for all of humanity. And some people express it in different ways. For some people, it's leaving their art piece behind. They're leaving their mark on the world. So he's filled with love, but of a different kind. Both people have, for me, both people have to value truth. Okay? I work to understand, be, and express truth. I work to understand, be, and express truth, to help myself and inspire others to help themselves, or to inspire others to be their best self. This was my mission statement that I came up with a long time ago. I should probably update it, but I do slowly update it as time has gone on. But truth is very important. Dedication to truth. M. Scott Peck talks about a lot. Dedication to truth being important. Compassion you could define as passion for all. Again, I'll show you some stuff at the end here. Just see if I have anything else. I know it's been a very long talk, and I'm tired too. Too many people live for their job, they live for their relationship, and they live for money, and they leave no time for themselves. It's a big problem. You got to leave some time for yourself. Otherwise, you won't have a self, and it's not going to work if you're just a mush of concession. You know, if two people are just mushy people, it's like there's nothing really there. There's no unique individualities there. You know, to make yourself an instrument of love, you know, that you're a brotherly love, you know, you could define yourself as an instrument of love and you just love everyone. That, again, that's the unconditional, the compassion. That, I do think, makes you such an awesome person, that you make yourself worthy of love, of that romantic kind of relationship kind of thing. Don't look for pleasure and entertainment. That is not freaking love. There is a thing, you know, a lot of lonely people out there, they're not, it's not the physical loneliness that really gets you in life. Physical loneliness is not that difficult to deal with. It's much more difficult to deal with mental loneliness. If you're alone in mind, if you're in such a category of mind that nobody else thinks like you, you feel much more alone than if somebody else is in the room. You could feel even more lonely. Robin Williams got some quote like that. You know, you feel more lonely around people that are just on a totally different wavelength than you. You're alone in mind. You know, you can't relate to them on the brain kind of level, the frequency. You know, that's real loneliness. So if you're active, you're out there, you're putting yourself out there, you're challenging yourself, you're on a mission, everything's going to be drawn to you, and you will find other people that are like you. If you really persist in your path, though you forfeit the little, you gain the great. You demonstrate yourself so as to put yourself out of reach of false relations and draw to you the firstborn of the world. Dun, 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 dun. So what is love? Is love persecution? Is it victimization? Is it the savior complex? Is love entertainment? Is it values and virtues? Is it physical chemistry? Is love an apology? Is love a sacrifice? Is love absence of a self? Okay, I would go with values and virtues. You know, an apology or sacrifice, you know, what I mean by that is, this is all stuff that I come up with, you know, most of it. Okay, so I've hurt you, you know, you're in a relationship, I've hurt you a lot over the course of time. Now, do I stay with you simply because I want to make it up to you? I'm apologizing to you by staying with you. And I'm sacrificing myself, and I'm such a nice person that I feel bad that I hurt you. Love becomes now an apology, a sacrifice. I don't know if that's good either. Yeah, you should make amends somehow. I don't know that means you got to be with that person for the rest of your life or another 5 years or another 2 years or another year. There's only so much you can do to repair damage. Do what you can. Hopefully that person will forgive. If not, that's on them. You know, be responsible with your actions also, and take responsibility for your actions. Don't be one of those guys that just blames everybody else for everything. That's not very nice. So, and you know, I don't know everything about love, but to me, it's been same values, different vices, same values, different virtues. That's what it has been for me. It's been the most amazing I've ever seen. And it's actually been with another person of the same sex. We didn't have sex. I'm not gay. But this is true love. This is real love. You mutual inspiration, mutually admire. You admire each other. You can't love somebody you don't admire, unless you're talking about that other kind of unconditional love. Alright, I think I've gone over just about everything here, folks. I don't want to kill you anymore with all this stuff. That's basically my entire life I've just given you guys on love. So, everything I've ever thought of, for the most part, is in there. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like a consultation on numerology or nutrition, those are my specialties. This is kind of out of the box, but I am very philosophical, so I like doing these things. Hit me up, collinchi@gmail.com. I'll put the link in the description below. We can do a consultation. I am the guru of nutrition. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Collin Chi, certified nutritional consultant, numerologist, as always. Rise in love. And don't overuse that word love. Think about the word compassion, because that's an awesome word too. I like that word. Think about universal love too. I know this was more focused on relationship one-to-one kind of. Remember that relation kayak? Here come all the images. And as always,